Yeah, I'm just reshooting this one. So this one's called The Wrong Friends. Yeah, just reshooting it just purely because I wanted to change the content that's within it. Um, but this one is all about, well, I'm going to go through something called Words of Knowledge with you, just so you understand. It's a spiritual gift. I don't profess to actually hold that gift, but I had a scenario which was very, very similar. So I'm going to explain what words of knowledge are first, okay? So it's one, as I say, one of the spiritual gifts is where, and where I've seen it in practice quite a bit is in street evangelism. So it'll be where somebody approaches somebody, starts a conversation, and then to really kind of gain their trust, their confidence, I suppose, in what this person's saying, is they'll tell them stuff about themselves that nobody else could possibly know. So it could be an example of something like they'd say, I don't know, oh, you've had a sporting injury. Was that it was your Achilles tendon, was it? And you can no longer do that sport anymore. You were. It sounds like you. Yeah, yeah. So you were. You're in a team that's saying you've had to pull out and you've had to completely end your sports career. And obviously you're quite bitter about that because that was something that you really really wanted to do. And then that person will probably go, well, how could you possibly know that? That sort of thing. Obviously, loads of different examples of things. But then they will go into, well, I only know that because of God has told me that. And has told me that so that, you'll kind of receive what I'm about to tell you. Obviously, you get the other side of that would be a psychic doing exactly the same thing. So a psychic doing exactly the same thing. The difference is that where the Holy Spirit would be talking to a Christian and telling them this kind of information. With a psychic, it's literally a demon that's speaking in their ears. So that's what we would call like a familiar spirit. So somebody a spirit that would tell them stuff about people that they couldn't possibly know to gain their confidence. And then before you know it, you constantly go into a psychic, which is a bit of a no-no. Well, it's a massive no-no, in fact. Anyway, so that's words of knowledge. So it's where you know something, or you know something about somebody that you couldn't possibly know because you've never met them before, that kind of thing. So that's the sort of thing that I'm going to take you through an example of. It's the only other time it's only any time it's actually happened for me, and I can't be 100% sure that it was even that, if I'm honest. It could have been just a lucky hit, but I'll take you through that, and then we'll go into a dream that feeds into it very, very nicely. Very, very nicely. And then I'll tell you where that dream and reality is kind of progressed. Anyway, so this words of knowledge thing happened. This was 2nd of November 2024, so a little while ago now, given it's September 2025. So I was basically at a local swimming pool, and we'd, to give you a bit of background, what I've tended to do when I've gone to a swimming pool now is, because the kids are a bit older, I let them go off and do what they're doing, what they want to do. The swimming pool we go to is a bit more of like almost like a water park sort of thing, in that it's not just a pool where you just go up and down doing lengths. It's got flumes, it's got a little lazy river sort of thing, rapids, it's got all of that sort of stuff. So I just let the kids go off, have a bit of fun, and I a lot of the time will just wait at the bottom of where the flumes come out, and I'll just sit there in the pool, wait till they come out. Quite often they'll come out, and then they'll say, "Right, can we go again?" And obviously they go again, and then I'll just stay in the pool. But what I often do when we go there is I use that time actually to pray, and I pray obviously silently. I don't pray out loud, but I pray about all the various different people that are coming out of the flumes. The little kids coming out and their parents collecting them, and just because I'm in an environment with loads of people around me, and it just seems like a good opportunity to pray for people who are there. No, nothing specific, just in general, whatever sort of comes to me is what I'll end up praying. So that's what I'd done this particular day. It's probably one of the first times I actually did that, I think. But I was praying for a large portion of the time that we were there, sitting in that pool, and while they were going off and they were doing this stuff. Anyway, so we finish the pool, and then we go out, and because it's around about lunchtime, we go and get something to eat from a fast food restaurant. And so we go in. It's a fast food restaurant that has an M, as its logo, and we sit down at a table after using one of the terminals, one of the big sort of things, just to tap away and order your food, and then table service to come and bring it to your table. So that's what happened. So we'd already ordered our food, sat down, and then I noticed to the right of us, directly next to us, so the next table along from us, had three teenagers, I would say around about ages of 15, maybe 16, that kind of age, two girls and a boy. And I just kind of glimpsed across at them, nothing major. When you're sort of waiting for something, you just kind of look around, don't you? So nothing too major. But I looked across, and there was one of the girls just had a little nose piercing, um, dark hair that had been dyed, and I just felt like a real overwhelming need to pray for her specifically, just her specifically. And obviously I'd been doing that anyway, so it didn't seem overly crazy to continue that out of the pool as well. But what I was specifically looking to pray, what I was led to pray about was general disobedience, confusion over her identity, also sexual identity, and yeah, I was just doing a bit of a prayer around that, just yeah. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I can't remember exactly what I said, but all stuff to do with that. Okay, so disobedience, general confusion, and sexual identity. Okay. About 5 minutes later, so as I said, it's two girls and a boy, and they're just talking between themselves. Then somebody else turns up to join their party. You know what I mean? not there's a party going on, but yeah, just to join them. Join them. Yeah, another girl turned up, and then sat next to this particular one. Gave her a hug, and then that was it. Obviously, we're continuing to eat. They will go off to the terminal because they've just been sitting there, I guess, waiting for this person to turn up. And then they go off to the terminal that I've just been at. So it's literally right next to me, pretty much right next to me. They all are actually. There's like about three in a row. I was on that last table, and then you've got terminal that go all along beside me. So yeah, so they come up next to me. Where are we? And a couple of them, I think they went off for a smoke, so they would have just walked out past those terminals, and there's the door. The front door was there, so it was you'd come in, and there would just be, I think, three terminals in a row, and we were just to the left if you were walking in. But yeah, so a few of them went off, and then they were vaping just outside, kind of like shouting across, through the doors to each other about what their order is, all of that kind of stuff. And then that new girl that had turned up then started kissing the girl that was the one that I'd been praying about. And so I'm kind of like, oh, right, okay. So, okay, all right. So these girls are together. And the boy who was up there sort of says, I can't believe you just did that. And she said, oh, we don't care about what anyone thinks. We don't care what anyone thinks. And so pretty much straight away, I was like, well, okay, that's pretty much spot on from what I just thought about a random person that happened to be sitting next to me, which was to do with, as I said, it was sexual identity, it was disobedience, and what did I say? Disobedience, and confusion over identity, that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So that was pretty much sort of spot on. And I thought, okay, right, well, either I was just looked at her and then kind of thought this about her straight away, or there was actually a bit of knowledge there. Now, what I would have done, I mean, what you're supposed to do, obviously, with a word of knowledge is that you use that. It's an evangelistic tool, really. But I don't know how that could have possibly gone down. Me talking to them and speaking about Jesus and stuff like that to them. I can't imagine that would have gone down too well. But yeah, that's basically what happened with that one. And then, so that was sort of November. As I said, that's the only time that's happened. But just so you know, this was literally just somebody who had dark hair and a nose piercing. That was it. The other people next to her looked, They all look completely normal. They weren't dressed up in any specific way, just normal kind of clothing, that kind of stuff. I just felt this. I was just compelled to pray for that one. I didn't pray for any of the others. I only prayed for that one. And then that she was the one who ended up being the one. As I said, I sensed a lot of rebellion in her. As I said, confusion over stuff, and then obviously the homosexuality aspect of it as well. Anyway, right, moving on. So, dreams. So I'm going to go into a dream. This was now the 20th of the 5th, 2025. So it's about 6 months later. I have a dream. And then I'm going to go through how this kind of intersects with reality. So this dream is where, so my daughter, my youngest daughter, is looking for approval from me. She's basically got a new friend group, and they're just into some really sort of odd sort of stuff. So it's kind of like they're into sort of not too sort of, I would call it fringe sort of music, really. It was kind of music where I suppose it's not overly fringe music, but there was basically a black hoodie that she was wanting to buy, and the name of the band, because it was one that had a band on it, was KORN. Okay, so it's that kind of music, sort of heavy, sort of metal rock sort of stuff, and she was with a group of roughly about 10 people, I would have said, roughly, and she wanted me to meet them. So I was actually going to pick her up, sorry, from being at this house, I guess, or something like that. And weirdly, when I turned up, they were all lined up in a row. Really, really odd. I just sort of walked in, and then they were just like one, two, like all of them just in a line. And I described them. It probably come up here. It was like a criminal lineup. They're all just lining up in a row. And how I would describe them. So they're all kind of not they weren't facing me directly. So if you imagine, I walked in and they're kind of on a bit of a diagonal sort of line, but they're all in a line. And at the head of that line is a guy. The rest of them were mainly girls. But what they looked like was they were all wearing sort of real rock sort of stuff. Like black nail polish, black hair. With like streaks of pink in it, that sort of stuff. Yeah, that kind of like fashion sort of thing. And the worrying thing about the group was that they were really, really accepting of my daughter. Okay, so they were really accommodating. They were like, oh, we really love her. She's really, really great girl and stuff like that. And so it felt like that they were providing her with a kind of big group kind of, what's the word? They were giving her a sense of belonging and a big friend group, and it was in this dream, it's what she was looking for. Yeah, she was looking for, loads of friends and stuff like that, and this group was kind of offering it to her. But I was, of course, really, really concerned around this group actually leading her astray because of what they were into, as far as, again, what they were listening to and stuff like that. As I said, this particular one having a face of a demon on it, and then the band name KORN on it. But it made me think of all of those types of bands, and I was like, no, I definitely don't want to go down that kind of route. And what was so sort of cute about it was that she was kind of standing to the side of me, and she was kind of like looking up at me and saying, oh, Dad, look, these are my new friends. And she was looking for me to approve of her friends, basically. And I was just kind of looking them up and down, just thinking, this isn't it. This is really not a good move. And you could tell that they were a very rebellious group. And it'd only be a matter of time before they would kind of corrupt her personality. So her personality at the time was just very, very lovely, as she is. That's the kind of girl she is. Absolutely lovely girl. I noticed within this lineup, I'd walked in, and then two of these girls just started kissing each other, like really passionately kissing each other. And I felt this overwhelming sense of again, rebellion, big time, big time, and I was concerned, obviously, that they were gonna put her away and cause problems for her. The other thing about it was at the time of this, she was. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, she was 12, which is 12 in reality, but in this she was more like 14, 15. So this was like a couple of 2 or 3 years in the future, I would say. But she was still keen for my approval on things. She just wanted to make sure that that I was kind of checking them out and that I was happy with what her situation was, which I thought was really really sweet. And that is what she's like as well. So she's got a K-pop band that she really really likes, and there's some because K-pop's like Korean pop. There's some stuff that comes up in their lyrics are a little bit dodgy, and she comes up and she says, "Oh, Dad, is this one all right, or is this demonic? What they're talking about." And so she kind of uses me as a way of just checking it out, making sure that it's okay, and she's not listening to something that's really bad for her to listen to, which again is really really sweet of her. And I'll say to her, "No problem. Look, send me the track, or send me the one that's got some lyrics on it. I'll have a little look through the lyrics and see if it's okay." As I said, sometimes I've said, "Yeah, that's not great," but most of them are fine. But anyway, so as I said, she was keen just to sound it out with her dad and make sure that it's all okay. And as I said, she was super sweet, super innocent. Yeah, which was really really lovely. Which is, as I said, what she's like. Um, yeah, all lined up, as I said, like the usual suspects. There was a guy, as I said, at the farthest end, who you could tell was kind of in charge of the group. Okay, so as I said, I don't remember there really being, if there was any kind of other guy in that group of about roughly 10, he would have been super submissive, I would have said, because this guy was clearly in control. He was, as I said, the head of the line, and you could tell that he was in charge. And he basically said to me as I came in, "So what do you think of what do you think of the hoodie that Sophie's wearing?" Looking for some feedback from me, but he knew that I had a massively negative feedback about it. So it was just really sort of, well, how do you describe it? Well, rebellious against authority, anybody older than him. It was just, the way he said it. I just thought, oh, immediately with this guy, I was like, we're not going to get on. There's no way we're going to get on. Just by that, just by what you just said there, I know what kind of person you are immediately. And yeah, really smarmy, as I said, kind of really rebellious. You could tell, it's like the sort of thing where it's the sort of person who would say something, and you would know they're lying. You would know that there's something behind what they're saying, and they might be all smiley and stuff. You're like, that's not really what you feel. That's not really what you mean by what you're saying. And I knew that what I knew was he knew what he was doing, and it was like he was looking at me, thinking, "Your daughter's next. Look at this sort of group of other people I've completely corrupted." And they're all along. They're mine, kind of thing. Sort of thing. That's what I got from him, and that he was very aware of what he was doing. That he was completely corrupting these girls, and as I said, potentially boys. I can't really remember. Knew exactly what he was doing, and I gave him just a kind of honest response of, as I said, what did he say again? What do you think of the hoodie that Sophie's wearing? And I said, well, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. In a kind of, I'm not gonna sort of say. I didn't say it like really aggressively or anything, but I just said I don't like it. Yeah, don't want it. Don't want her to wear it, basically. And yeah, as I said, Sophie was kind of, she just, as I said, just introduced me to this group, and then she's kind of looking up at me, seeing that I disapprove. I really disapprove of this group. And what I wrote down is, it kind of reminded me of, was I don't know if anybody again who's watching this has seen the film Taken, which is about a girl that's in her sort of mid teens. I think she's around 15, same sort of age really, and she wants to go off to a film concert, and then she gets snatched while she's in another country, and her and loads of other people are getting put into the um, let's say the sex trade. Okay, so they're put into that kind of trade. Her friend end up dying in it, but she ends up surviving and nothing actually happens to her. But obviously, as a result of that, she'll just be completely changed by that experience. So this was like that kind of sort of, it felt like that kind of moment. This was, I've got my absolutely lovely, beautiful girl that's she's dressed completely normal. You know, she's dressed completely normal with these other guys that are standing there, and it's like this is a turning point here of if she does get accepted, or she is already accepted by this group, but if she decides to be friends with these guys properly, then this is the turning point, and she's just going to end up being like them, and that's going to lead her down a really, you know, dodgy path as far as where I could see it going. Okay, and as I said, with that taken example, was she was super super sweet and innocent, and she was saying, you know, thank you daddy, you know, when he was the guy, the dad says, yeah, you can go on this trip, but I want you to keep in contact with me. It's you know, these places are dangerous, etc., etc. And then when she comes out of it, obviously she's just completely changed by the experience. It felt like that kind of moment of this could change her significantly, and she could end up being exactly like them, as being assimilated into this group. And before you know it, she's wearing those tops, she's dyeing her hair, she's you know, putting on nail varnish, all of that kind of stuff, you know, dog collar, all of that ends up happening. I know that is not what I wanted for her. Okay, so she was really, really downhearted, you know, disappointed by my reaction. Um, Probably because I was thinking, because of it, maybe because of she was looking at it and thinking, well, this isn't fair. Like, everybody else is able to do all these things and do what they want to do, but I'm not allowed to. I was like, well, no, because I'm looking out for you. Um, but she felt really disappointed. I think I'm not sure whether it's a case that we got in the car or something like that, but she was then very, very quiet afterwards because I was picking her up anyway. You know, yeah. So just have a quick look over the notes to see if there's anything else. Yeah, so my concern, I'll go through my concerns, which was, as I said, these look like a collection of let's just say they were a collection of girls, as I said, potentially boys, that didn't feel like they kind of felt fit in. And if I look back at my school days, it was the guys that were kind of into some of that sort of stuff were almost like a group of people that kind of came together because of that particular music style that they liked. But they were kind of the people that didn't really fit into any other group. You know, like the sporty people, the girls that like doing their nails and their hair, and I don't know, all of that kind of stuff. So they just had their own. They didn't really fit in anywhere, and they kind of came together as a group, and they all liked the same sort of music. I don't know whether that was the case from initially, but that's how it kind of progressed. I remember that all happening like quite suddenly, actually, when I was in sixth form. So around about, what was that, 16 to 18 sort of time frame, when we could all wear our own clothes, you know, rather than a school uniform. People come in with like spiky hair and dog collar on, and all sorts of like leather jackets and things. Like, what's going on here? But that's what it kind of felt like. It felt like these guys were all ones that didn't really fit in, so they all came together, and they were all this. This guy was drawing them all in, but he didn't have any love for them at all. This guy just enjoyed controlling them, and being at the head of the group, kind of like the alpha male in this group. Yeah. So what my concern was, the music that my daughter is into, Korean pop, is obviously a bit fringe anyway. So I was a little bit concerned of, could there be some kind of a change in her music style. You know, if she gets any kind of rejection from other people around her music style or stuff like that, maybe she goes to like the complete opposite extreme. You know, going from one sort of fringe music style to another fringe music style, and then gets into rocky kind of stuff and metal and all of that sort of stuff, which I really wouldn't want her going into. Um, just a real sort of swing, complete swing from there. Anyway, um, yeah. So just one moment. I'm just going to quickly read through this because I know there was something else that happened. Yeah, yeah. There was some stuff basically that happened. Well, after that dream, I actually came out of it. And I ended up going into a prayer, specifically around this, and then sort of praying about all the kind of things that I was seeing, which were very very similar to that word of knowledge thing, where I was talking about all these various different things, because it all had the same elements. It had the again, how would I phrase it? Um, Identity issues. Yeah, so that's what I felt with the first person identity issues. Um, Rebellion, that kind of stuff, and then on the sexual sort of side of things as well. And so I was just praying against all of those things, you know, praying that there wouldn't be any kind of any move into those kind of things. It was just interesting that this is 6 months later, obviously, that it was very, very similar. I don't know about the music style, obviously, for those people I saw in the restaurant, but yeah, it seemed very, very similar. Anyway, so then reality comes in. So, so this was May sort of time I had that dream. Now I had no idea. Just so you know, I've been listening to like the band, you know, that she was um, listening to. She'd send me a couple of music tracks. That'd be about it. Okay, but we end up going to the actual concert for them, for this Korean pop band, and so then I see the Community. Okay, and then the Community at this at the stadium that we went to watch them. It's very similar again to all of these. Um, the it's what I want to say is the same sort of spirit of being kind of, your fashion is all completely controlled in a way, in that you all will end up wearing very similar sort of stuff. And again, what I noticed was, well, as I was looking around, was very very. It was like It was almost like a uniform at this place. It was like loads and loads of really really short skirts, really really short skirts, ripped tights, which is a bit dodgy in my mind. Ripped tights, nail polish, fingerless gloves, PVC, leather stuff. There was men dressing as women wandering around, and there was a lot. I noticed a really much higher than normal girl on girl sort of stuff happening. You know, lots of kissing stuff like that in the open. It attracted far more of a female following anyway. So I didn't see a huge amount of guys there. I suppose there was quite a few, but much higher amount of girls than there was guys. Anyway, so I was basically seeing the same sort of thing of what I'd been seeing in the other stuff. I was seeing that kind of happen. A lot of dyed hair, streaks in hair and stuff like that. I even saw a girl with a hairband, like a bunched sort of thing, and it had loads of crosses and stuff in it. And I was like, what's this all about? You know, a lot of sort of odd stuff going on there. So that's what kind of like happened in reality. As I said, about what was that? A couple of months later. So as I said, hadn't seen anything to do with any of the cultural kind of bits and pieces around what people were wearing or anything like that. My daughter had actually got a short skirt sort of thing as well, which I wasn't happy with at all. But and then I saw that it was, as I said, it was like a uniform. It's really odd. Anyway, moving on from that. So stuff that's more happened this month. So we're in September. Is just my daughter started wanting to dye her hair, specifically putting streaks in her hair. And she's just been doing it with chalk at the moment, where you can just kind of draw it into your hair. But she's getting really into it. She really wants to dye her hair and stuff like that. And I thought, it's another sort of a little bit further down the line of what I'd seen and stuff. But her music style's not changing at the moment. But that's basically how that all kind of um, finished, more or less. I mean, as I said, it was just interesting the way that I had that word of knowledge, which was just an isolated thing, and then I realised when I had this dream, oh, okay, they kind of actually connect quite a bit because yeah, of just the things that were in there. Anyway, so hopefully, I'm trying to think if there's something I've missed off. Not really, as I said, word of knowledge. Then end up having a dream that is sort of talking about my daughter in a similar sort of scenario. And then I see it happen in reality, an actual pop concert where I see all of that stuff. And then again, months later, again, another couple of months on, and randomly, this was what was random. Okay, these are, well, as I said, hair chalks that you put. We've had them for years, and they've been in. Actually, you can't see it. It's just a set of drawers just behind me. They've been in there for years, years and years, and randomly, some of these chalks ended up being in a little pot that we put chalks in, because in our kitchen we've got a really big what's it called, black chalkboard that I write things like shopping list and stuff like that, those sort of things. Sometimes what we're gonna have to eat, so I know, all right, that goes off, fresh meat wise, that goes off before that, so that's prioritise these, that kind of thing. It's just to organise myself, really. And randomly in there, there was just one of these chalks, but all the other chalks were still in there, and she happened to pick up the chalk and went, "Oh, this isn't the sort of chalk you use on this chalkboard." And she said, "This is a hair chalk," and yeah, and then she just decided to put it in her hair. Very, very random, but that's where that happened, and now she wants to do it every day. Anyway, so yeah, that's where I'll leave this one. So it's a little bit shorter actually than the other one, but hopefully it covers off all the bits and pieces. I've cut a few bits out that I realised I went into maybe a bit too much detail. So cut a few bits out just to keep it a little bit more, a little bit shorter. But hopefully you found it interesting, as I said, me taking you through how those things kind of progress through reality, dream, reality as well. Anyway, I will see you on the next video.